those of you who haven't been here before, I'm Ted Landsmark. I'm a distinguished professor of the practice in the School of Public Policy, which is part of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. This semester we are trying to do, no, we're not trying to do, we're doing something a little bit different with the open classroom, which meets here on Wednesday evenings, normally from 6 to 7:30, with a different subject matter each semester. I can tell you now that in the fall we'll be working on questions of public policy and journalism. But this semester we decided to try something a little bit different for Northeastern and for many other schools, and that is to bring together multiple disciplines, project management, engineering, construction management, and public policy, to talk about how we move forward, primarily in the realm of sustainability and resilience, through the use of quantitative metrics that would enable us to more readily hold accountable all of the public policy people who, to a large extent, and I say this because I'm one of them, talk in large terms about what we want to do to improve the environment and the quality of life that we live in. But to a large extent, we really don't have metrics that hold ourselves accountable for whether we're actually moving forward with all the promises we make about sustainability and resilience. And so we're very fortunate tonight, Professor Mustafa and I, to have as our guest speaker an individual who will be introduced by Professor Mustafa, but I just want to say briefly, as we're halfway, two-thirds of the way through this semester, that we've had some very interesting, intriguing, and challenging conversations as among ourselves as we seek to bridge the gap between what goes on in engineering and project management and what goes on in the development of public policy. We've looked at a number of interesting issues, not only around metrics, but around ethics, and what it is that is embedded in the quantitative work that we do. We will continue this dialogue into the future as we build on what we've learned this past semester. But having said all of that, I'm happy to turn the microphone over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Abdel Mustafa, who is from CPS and whose background, unlike mine, which is in law and environmental design, but whose background is in engineering, and whose work has taken him and his practice global. So with that, Professor, you're on.
Thank you, Professor Landsmark. Welcome, everyone. This is kind of a joint sessions between the School of Public Policy, Project Management, and we have in the audience Professor Tasbahji, Mohammed Tasbahji and his class. So, Professor, thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Our session tonight is titled The European Green Deal was the first climate neutral continent. And our presenter is Dr. Irmgard Buder, who has been a professor of renewable energy since April 2012 and the head of the Environment and Energy Bachelor of Science program at the University of Applied Science, Rheinwald in Germany since April 2013. After completing her PhD on application of cyclic electroanalytical measurement methods and their applications to new substances. She first worked on development of new nano-based materials. Sounds like really very awesome. And later on, the development of new membranes of fuel cells. She is also active in several projects on energy transitions, with focus on energy storage in the form of hydrogen and on sustainable transport. And she also worked on the development goal, the 17 development goal, particularly on affordable and clean energy. And she's part and a lead on an important project in Germany. It's called the Transformations of the Lower Rhine Region, Innovation, Sustainability, and Participation. She will be talking, as I said, about the European Green Deal and how the EU 27 could become climate neutral by 2050, while ensuring a just and inclusive transition and a clean, affordable, and secure energy supply. She will also be talking about research and internship opportunity in her university as well as in Germany. Professor Buder, thank you for accepting the invitations and a warm welcome to Northeastern University. The floor is yours.
Many, many thanks to the nice introduction. I'm talking today about the European Green Deal, striving to be the first climate neutral continent. Before I start my talk, I want to introduce shortly a little bit about myself, or talk a little bit about myself and about the university I'm coming from. I'm Professor of Renewable Energy and Electromobility. As was already stated, yes, my interest is in energy transition, sustainable transportation, storage of electric energy, and electrochemical analysis, specifically hydrogen. Rheinbach University is a university in Germany. It is a university for applied science, and it was founded in 2009. So we are a very young university. We have two locations. One is in Cleve. Cleve is a city at the border to the Netherlands, and another campus where I'm teaching and researching, which is located in Camp Lindford. So we have in some 4 faculties: technology and bionics, life science, society and economics, all located in Cleve, and in Camp Lindford, communication and environment. That's also the campus where I'm active. What is for German universities quite special, we offer degree programs not only in German, but more in English. 75% of our degree programs are taught in English. This decision was taken in order, to make our university more attractive to students from abroad, for example, from United States. Deeply rooted in the Lower Rhine, yet connected to the world, is the motto of our university. And here, some impressions of the Kleve campus and of the campus in Camp Lindford. So we have many, many cooperations, 94 partner universities in 36 countries, 53 partners in Europe, and 5 cooperations with the university in the United States. Also specifically now important is the cooperation with Pittsburgh State University. That's the reason why Abdel Mustafa and I came into contact. So many, many thanks, Abdel Mustafa, that you made the contact and that I have the chance to talk today. So as already stated, yes, we are welcoming students from abroad, and we also want to invite students who want to make an internship or who want to study abroad for 1 or more semesters to come to us. If you're interested in joining us as an exchange student, then a good idea would be to contact your international office or your Center for Internationalization and Languages. But of course, you can also find information here on our homepage. If you want to make an internship, so also, come into contact with us. It might be the chance that you can work on a research project or on another work. So also here, also that would be a chance for students from, for example, Northeastern University or other universities from the United States as well. So a short look on our faculty communication and environment. I want to highlight the fields environmental and energy sciences, since, as was already stated, I'm the head of the degree program Environment and Energy, as well as I'm also teaching in communication and information engineering. We have many, many labs, as you can see, and I want to highlight specifically the Green Fabrication Laboratory. You may have heard of the Fabrication Laboratory. Fab Lab, the idea was, came from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technologies. So as to bring the digital work with the real work together, digital fabrication, as for example, 3D printing, is a very important thing for Fab Labs. And our approach is now to bring digital fabrication together with green technology and the concept of sustainability. As closing material cycles, developing green materials based on biological resources, wood, algae, or others, and application of green energy and storage options are objectives of the Green Fab Lab. Also here you see some of our staff working in the Green Fab Lab. Here you see teaching activities in the fabrication lab. So, but let's come to the main topic. How can the European Union, EU 27, become climate neutral by 2050 while ensuring a just and inclusive transition and a clean, reliable and affordable energy? Clean and affordable energy is also a development goal of the UN. So also here, the European Union is not very special. To become climate neutral by 2050, some other countries have declared that, but European Union is, Union of 27 states, here a very important actor. So why becoming neutral, climate neutral? Here you see the temperature increase 2015-2019 in average, and how the temperature increase was distributed globally. You can easily see, most important is the increase of temperature in the pole region. Here already temperatures of more than 3 degrees Celsius, a temperature increase of more than 3 degrees Celsius was or has been observed. But when you look here at Europe, Europe doesn't look too good. Also in Europe, you see already the temperature increase is obviously more than 1 degree Celsius. In the Paris Agreement, 2015, the target was set to limit the increase of the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. You may have seen that this week, the new UNCP report came out, and we have already a temperature increase, an average of 1.1 degrees Celsius globally. So in Europe, that's news of The Guardian of this month, not this month, but last month. Italy faces another year of severe drought after little winter rain or snow. So Italy, Usually in Italy, it rains in winter. This time, it didn't rain, or not enough. Italy had already a severe drought last summer. So if no rain is falling now, then the next drought will come. So after the drought 2022, another drought is expected in 2023, and not only in North Italy, but also, for example, in southern France. So also that is one motivation, but of course other things, increasing sea, the risk for biodiversity are other motivations for protecting climate. So the president of the European Commission is Ursula von der Leyen, and she stated already in 2020, we are acting today to make the European Union the world's first climate neutral continent by 2050. So here on the map, you see the European Union, and you see Europe is somewhat bigger. Also, the 27 member states of the European Union are not complete continental Europe, and also United Kingdom is not part anymore of the European Union, but nevertheless, the European Union represents very big emitters of greenhouse gases. So also the European Union does not represent whole Europe, but only 27 member states. The member states are shown here on the map in violet and green. Iceland, Norway, and Swiss are not member states of the European Union, but they are associated. Means many legislations and many rules of the European Union are also adapted by these three countries. So how can a climate neutral Europe be achieved? If the European Union becomes climate neutral, it will be not complete Europe, but nevertheless, it will be a very important contribution to limiting the temperature increase, hopefully to below 2 degrees Celsius. So the targets or aims of the Green Deal are shown here, and you see it's not only about climate neutrality. I want to focus nevertheless today on this topic, achieving climate neutrality, together with clean, reliable, and affordable energy. Leave no one behind, just transition, and last not least, financing the transition. So other aims you see here, for example, sustainable transport is of course also related to achieving climate neutrality. Transition to a circular economy is also about saving resources. And when you think about plastic is also, living very, very long, but when it's degraded, then it would also release carbon dioxide. So also here, this has also some link to climate neutrality as well as zero pollution Europe, farm to fork, addressing agriculture, the transformation of agriculture, and last not least here, towards modernized and simplified CAP, addressing industry. So also, what does it mean becoming climate neutral? So that does mean that the net emissions of greenhouse gases should be zero. Most important greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, emitted by combustion of fossil fuels, for example, methane, emitted, for example, in oil production, gas production, but also in farming, for example, nitrous oxide, production and application of fertilizers, for example, but also emitted in the production of chemicals. So these three gases are emitted by anthropogenic activity, but they are also part of natural cycles. So for example, carbon dioxide, we are breathing, respiration, and of course, yes, we emit carbon dioxide. But on the other hand, carbon dioxide can be absorbed by plants. Plants make photosynthesis. So in principle, in the first place, the carbon cycle can be closed, but not when we burn fossil fuels, which were formed out of biomass millions of years ago. And the process forming coal, oil, or natural gas took thousands of years. Burning them goes much faster. So other greenhouse gases would be, for example, hydrofluorocarbons used in refrigerants or perfluorocarbons emitted in aluminum production. These greenhouse gases, for example, are only emitted by human activity. So to be climate neutral, the greenhouse gas emissions have to be reduced to zero, or they have to be absorbed by the environment. As already stated, carbon dioxide, for example, can be, of course, absorbed by plants, but obviously the plants do not absorb enough carbon dioxide. Therefore, we see the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Therefore, temperature increases. So when we look now at the current emissions and the emissions in the last years of the European Union, 27, then starting in 1990, you can see emissions went down, emissions went up. And here going to 2019, some reduction, but 2020, there was really a significant reduction in greenhouse gases, but that was not wanted. This emission reduction was not due to policy. This was COVID-19. Disruption of the supply chains, stop of manufacturing sites, so also decreased industrial activity led to greenhouse gas emission reduction, but not in a way that was wanted. The idea was keep economic activity high, but reduce only greenhouse gas emissions. So when we take 100% 1990, and 1990 is the reference year for the European Union in the Paris Agreement, and it's also the reference year for the targets announced. Then we can see 2019, 25% less greenhouse gas emissions than compared to 1990. So, also, 31 years more, we want to achieve 75% greenhouse gas emission reduction, so to achieve the complete climate neutrality. And so 30 years for 25%, that has now to go much, much faster. So here I want to look a little bit in which sector is responsible for which emissions. On the left side, you see in dark blue energy supply, followed by industry, transport, residential and commercial. So that would be, for example, heating of buildings. Then agriculture. Carbon dioxide emissions of biomass are also considered. I stated just that plants would absorb carbon dioxide, but if you burn them, they emit carbon dioxide. So when a tree needs 10, 20, or 30 years for growing, burning the tree doesn't need 10 or 20 years. So that means also biomass. When we now burn wood, for example, then we emit carbon dioxide, which was absorbed over a comparable long time span, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, in probably 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on how much we burn. So this is considered in the red line, and you see wood was favored as heating material. Also other biofuels were favored. So here the carbon dioxide emissions didn't went down, they went up. So next comes then waste, international aviation and international shipping, and negatively means removing carbon dioxide from atmosphere, land use. Also the forests in European Union, also the agriculture in European Union absorb some carbon dioxide. But this absorption is of course not enough to balance the sum of these emissions. You see also some sectors were very successful in reducing emissions, also energy sector and industry. Transport sector just increased. Also development of more efficient engines, for example, was completely balanced by more transport, more mobility. So also here the transport sector is one of the sectors where, yeah, something has to be done. So how can that be done? The targets were specified, and that was done also by Ursula von der Leyen, our President of the European Union, in December 2020. We will reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. So also 25% emission reduction was achieved by 2019. So the next 30% have to be achieved. We have 7 years left. So also how can the European Union achieve a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in 10 years? So that was at least the question 2020. So, and that's the program, how that should be achieved, Fit for 55. So Fit for 55, how the European Union will turn climate goals into law. And that's also one important thing. It's one thing that von der Leyen is stating the aims of the European Union, but they have to need legislation, otherwise nothing would happen. So the European Council consists of the 27 heads of the governments and states, also for example, Chancellor Scholz, President Macron. The European Council has set the goal for the European Union to cut its greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 and become neutral by 2050. By the European climate law, these goals are binding for the European Union and its member states. So, and that means also that if member states as Germany do not comply to the targets, they would have to pay fines. So, but what are the ideas? What can be done? So, also how can greenhouse gas emission reduction be achieved in a free internal market? And the European Union is a free internal market. Also the first aim when the European Union was founded is to make one free market, one liberal economy over several countries. So one element of that is the European emission trading system, selling certificates for greenhouse gas emissions. And this I want to explain a little bit more in detail in the next slides. Support of technologies and products can be done by consumption incentives, for example, favor products which are more energy efficient. Production incentives, for example, support renewable energy. Taxation is an option. Also, for example, you can put taxes on technologies and products. In Europe, for example, taxes on cigarettes and alcohol are very high in order. When people think they need to consume alcohol or cigarettes, then at least they should pay for it. And of course, it generates some revenue for the government. And in principle, in Europe, we pay also already energy taxes. Also when you compare gasoline price, United States, Europe, the reason for the big difference is the energy tax. So you can set standards, for example, carbon dioxide emission standards for cars and vans, and not shown, but is in discussion at the moment, ban of technologies and products. What is planned is 2035. Starting from 2035 on, no registration of cars with internal combustion engine. Means no petrol cars and no diesel cars anymore. Only electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles. That's at least one idea. So the European emission trading system leads in principle in the first place to increasing prices. To balance that a little bit, the carbon border adjustment mechanism is introduced or shall be introduced. And a social climate fund should balance social impacts. So, but first, a little bit more about the European emission trading system. So as a cap and trade was developed, as far as I know, in the United States. And it was, for example, used for reducing sulfur dioxide emissions at the end of last century, very successful, or in the northeast of the United States for reducing nitrogen oxide emissions. So the idea behind is you set a cap, what is allowed to be emitted. So the maximum allowed greenhouse gas emissions are set by a cap. So here in the figure, you see a power plant, probably a coal power plant, and the coal power plant is emitting 12 units of carbon dioxide. So if the company has only 9 emission allowances, 9 certificates for emitting carbon dioxide, they wouldn't have enough. So what they do need to do is buy more certificates. For example, from a company, here in this example, that could be, for example, a gas power plant. Gas power plants producing the same amount of energy would emit less carbon dioxide. So if this company has more allowances than it needs, it can sell them. So as a company which emits more greenhouse gases, then they have certificates they have to buy. Also if a company has less allowances than emissions, they need to buy additional allowances from other companies. If a company has more allowances than it needs for its emission, it can sell them or keep them for later. Keep them for later could be clever because the yearly distributed allowances of emissions are usually reduced. That was how sulfur dioxide emissions were kept in the United States. And that's also the target of the European emission trading system, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So also by yearly reducing the number of allowances, the emissions can be reduced. Emission reduction is achieved by putting additional costs on greenhouse gases, on greenhouse gas emissions. And that's of course meaning, also for example, the electricity produced by a coal power plant gets more expensive. As if the coal power plant operator has to pay for the carbon dioxide emissions, yeah, you will see it in the electricity price. So the target is, of course, yes, more electricity should be produced by power plants emitting less carbon dioxide. But yeah, so one outcome could be, for example, electricity becomes more expensive, but also products which are produced from energy-intensive industry become more expensive. So as at the moment, the sectors and gases covered by the European ETS system are electricity and heat generation, also power plants, energy-intensive industry sectors, also for example, steel production, aluminum production, and aviation within the European Economic Area. Also, when you fly from Frankfurt to Boston, no certificates are needed because international aviation, not in the European area. If you fly from Frankfurt to Madrid, then you would have also to buy with your ticket the carbon dioxide certificates. So other gases are covered are nitrous oxide, which is emitted in certain chemical processes, producing, for example, nitric acid, perfluorocarbons, which are emitted in the aluminum industry. So here on the right side, you see now, the price of emission allowances. That started with 20 euro per ton carbon dioxide, went down, went up. So in the 10s of 2000, it was comparably cheap. Many allowances were available, not so many allowances were needed. Then 2017, the mechanism of distributing the allowances was changed. And what you see here is prices rose up. In 2021, summer, we saw prices already of 65 euro per ton carbon dioxide. That means a power plant operated with brown coal, you do pay way off more for the carbon dioxide emissions than for the brown coal itself. So, also, price for carbon dioxide certificates increased within the last years and is expected to increase further due to reduction of available certificates. That's the idea. Carbon dioxide emissions should be reduced. Income for the European Union. Earning the revenues of the ETS can be used for financing other measures. So in principle, yes, the money is not lost. The money is just going to the member states. And they can, of course, use this money, for example, for supporting renewable energy or other measures. Sectors which need to pay for the greenhouse gas emissions have a disadvantage in international trade. So for example, for the steel company, they have to pay the wages, they have to pay the energy, and they have to pay for the carbon dioxide emissions they cause. That's, in other countries, no emission certificates are necessary. These countries would have an advantage in international trade. So to balance this, at least in the European Union, the carbon border adjustment mechanism shall be introduced. And the idea is very simple. Put customs on imported goods, which are produced with high greenhouse gas emissions, for example, steel. So also countries which import steel to European Union would probably have to pay tax, not taxes, but customs, balancing that they have not the carbon dioxide certificate costs in their production. So, but up to now, industry and energy together with a little bit aluminum production for nitrous perfluorocarbons, that covers 41% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So even if they would be put to zero, the number of allowances in 2030, that wouldn't be enough. So as new sectors, now from 2026 on, building and roads should be included in the trading system. And the idea is quite simple. Covering the emissions of road and buildings shall be achieved by fuel suppliers, as for example, suppliers of heating oil, petrol, or diesel, need to have the allowances for the carbon dioxide emission caused by burning the fuel. So for diesel, you will need more allowances per liter or per gallon than for petrol. So it's more carbon dioxide is emitted. So the outcome, I think, is quite clear. Extending the European ETS on buildings and roads will lead to higher prices of heating oil, petrol, diesel, and other fuels. So 65 euro That would be roughly 20 cents per liter petrol. Companies and private households shall invest in better insulation of buildings. Then you would need less heating oil, more efficient vehicles, or electric cars. As when you have an electric car, you wouldn't need to buy conventional fuel, so no problem. But if you live if you are renting, for example, an apartment, would you like to invest in better windows for better insulation? Probably not. It might also be that you do not have the money for investing in better insulation, or that you have not the money to buy a new car which is more efficient. So also, what is if the savings of people are not enough for better insulation of buildings, a new car, or other energy-saving investments? So, and for this comes now, leave no one behind, a just transition shall be achieved. So how can that be achieved? The proposed solution is the Social Climate Fund. The Social Climate Fund shall be financed by 25% of the expected revenues of emission trading for building and road transport fuels. So the 75% would remain for other purposes, but 25% should be used for this. So first, to finance temporary direct income support for vulnerable households. Vulnerable households means exactly households which have not the options to invest in energy saving. But of course, yes, in the long run, what should also be done is invest in better buildings or investments that reduce emissions in road transport. Also, for example, better public transportation could be an option. In Germany, we have also that the governments itself, not the governments, but the communities build houses for vulnerable people. So these houses could be, for example, also be better quality, better insulated. Also that would be also measures which could be done. So we have now the idea, how could you balance that people with low income nevertheless can survive in spite of increasing energy costs, increasing fuel costs. The question is, of course, nevertheless, as a clean and affordable energy, we have discussed some ideas. How is it this reliable? So as a gross available energy in the European Union, here shown from 1990 on to 2020. And what you can easily see, mostly oil and petroleum products are used. Oil and petroleum is used in transportation, petrol, diesel, and they have the share in the highest share in the European Union. So next comes natural gas. And then already in 2019, renewable and biofuels. So when you look for the nuclear energy, here shown in Turkey's nuclear heat, the share is not as big as the share of the others, but only renewables, biofuel, and nuclear heat contribute to climate neutrality. Only with these energy forms, you can produce mainly electricity without carbon dioxide emissions. So for renewable energy, is renewable energy reliable? Also, the European emission trading system favors energy forms which have less or no greenhouse gas emissions. But here you see a week in May 2020 in Germany. Big surprise, the sun is shining only on daytime. And this was obviously a sunny May. So At daytime, it looks not too bad, but the wind supply was only on Sunday high enough to cover up for the whole, consumption of electricity on this day. Otherwise, in gray shown, conventional power plants, supplying the necessary energy which could not be supplied by renewable energy. So hydropower and biofuels are dispatchable. That means they can be programmed on demand of the grid operator. For sun and wind, you can reduce electricity production by sun and wind, no problem. You cannot increase it. So as here, solar and wind are not dispatchable. Solution would be, of course, when you have excess wind or excess sunshine producing electricity, you can store the energy. And that is already done. Increased electricity production by hydropower and biomass is in many European Union countries no option. So energy storage is necessary. You see here a pump storage power plant. That would be an option, but also here, increasing the number of pump storage power plants, you have not so many hills in Europe. And tourism industry is also saying something about when such hill has suddenly not anymore hill form, but a big lake on the top. So battery stations, you need high amounts of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and other metals. And it's not only balancing one day or one night. It could be 1 week where no wind is blowing and no sun is shining. So here in discussion is hydrogen, because hydrogen can be produced by electrolysis. Electrolysis means water is split into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity. The other way around, hydrogen can be used for electricity production, either by burning in a gas turbine or by reaction with oxygen in a fuel cell. So, and that's one initiative of the European Union. So hydrogen has a very high energy content per mass unit, 120 megajoule per kilogram. Hydrogen is a gas. Increasing the energy capacity means only increasing the tank size. It can be stored in principle as well as natural gas. And it can also be used for transportation. Trucks powered with hydrogen, or in industry, hydrogen is already important, for example, for producing fertilizer. So also the idea is hydrogen shall also contribute to the decarbonization of transport and industry. The plan is to install within the next years 10 million tons of domestic hydrogen production in the European Union. Additionally, the plan is to buy also hydrogen from other countries, which is produced by using renewable energy. That could be, for example, Morocco, if they agree to that. So also that would be an option, but not a cheap one. So you are in the United States, and I think you already asked yourself, and what is about nuclear power? Why not nuclear power? So first of all, European Union uses nuclear power, and we are happy at the moment that it works. But when we look at where comes the uranium from, then we see most of our uranium comes from other countries. 20% from Niger, 20% from Russia, 19% from Kazakhstan, and 18% from Canada. So that in principle is in the first place not so bad. As the European Union is depending on uranium imports as well as on import of fossil fuels. European Union learned in the last year the hard way that depending on other countries in energy imports can be tricky. So also, we didn't need carbon dioxide certificates for soaring energy prices. When Russia invaded the Ukraine 1 year before, we had already high prices for coal, for oil, and for natural gas. But specifically, the price of natural gas increased dramatically. So by the end of March 22, compared to the beginning, crude oil price has doubled, coal prices had tripled, natural gas prices increased by more than 5-fold compared to the early 2021. Okay, the price of carbon dioxide emissions doubled also. So as you hear, what you see is the prices increased dramatically, which put extreme strain on the people in Europe and on the industry in Europe. So as you hear, what we managed is, we managed to start old coal power plants again for electricity production, balancing for the missing natural gas imports from Russia. Also the natural gas import to Germany is nearly zero from Russia to Germany. And 1 year ago, one and a little bit more than a year ago, Germany obtained 55% of its natural gas imports from Russia. So also that was something. So also here, looking at where the energy comes from is of course also important when we think about reliable energy. So also to sum it up, the European Union strives for climate neutrality in 2050. Already in 2030, a greenhouse gas emission reduction of 55% shall be achieved. The emission reduction in 2019 was 25%, so something has to be done. So additional emission reduction shall be achieved by extension of the European emission trading system scheme on buildings and roads. That should, make higher prices, shall make fossil fuels less attractive. People with low income have no savings for investment in energy efficient or shift to carbon dioxide-free technology. So they should get support by, direct support, and also support for investment in energy efficiency should, enable people to shift to climate neutral technologies. So clean, reliable, and affordable energy. Reliability of clean energy supply require high investment, not only in new clean power plants, but also in energy storage. How to make energy imports from other countries reliable? There I think some ideas are there. For example, diversify, do not buy only from one country. That lesson was learned the hard way. Nevertheless, a livable future for all is possible if we take urgent climate action. That is the flagship UN report. Becoming the first carbon neutral continent is a challenge, but the European Union represents not whole Europe, but countries with significant greenhouse gas emissions until now. And if they achieve climate neutrality, it is also a role model for other countries. So this already setting, we have achieved minus 55% would be a very strong signal to other countries. Doing nothing is no option. So thank you very much. And I hope you have questions.
Given that so many of the folks in our immediate audience are involved with project management and construction management, to the extent that we can try to focus some of the questions and answers on those fields, I think that would be helpful. I'll just start by asking one very general question. and that is, what is the population roughly of the EU at this moment, and how does that compare to the population of the United States?
Oh my God, you have me. I would think, also Germany has 80 millions, France roughly 60 millions. So I would think it's more people than in United States. Also here I would think 400 million people would be a rough estimation, but way of less than China.
And maybe someone in our group can look that number up, but it sounds as though it might be on the order of 200 million or so, or about 2/3 the size of the United States, just for scale relationships. Let's open up for questions from our audience. We have our teaching assistant, Mohsen, who can bring the microphone around. While we're doing that, what kinds of questions did this raise for you?
I thought this is really kind of a comprehensive solutions, because thank you, Professor, you enlightened us about the policy part and the science part and the social fund. And I'm just thinking about, is there any kind of resistance or pushback? Because you mentioned, for example, the steel industry is pushing back. Is this, are people in Germany and Europe want this? Is this part of the political program, the Green Party, for example? How is this in terms of pushback and resistance?
Locally very different. Also when you look in Eastern Germany, in the brown coal mining areas, they are very concerned. They lost already much employment in the reunification of Germany in 1990, when Eastern Germany and Western Germany were united. So then already 90% of the jobs were lost in the mining industry in Eastern Germany. So also here they are very concerned. I think in Western Germany, they hope for big funds of the government. And in principle, the big funds are promised. Also there are already activities. And yeah, as at the moment, it looks like we have not enough people working. Also the employers are claiming they do not find people for their jobs. So at the moment, the job situation, at least in Western Germany, Northern Germany, Southern Germany, is comparably relaxed, which helps in Germany, which helps, of course, not in mining industry, for example, in Poland. So here the situation is probably completely different. Concerning the steel industry, also ThyssenKrupp has plans to set up the first direct reduction for steel production. They invest now in big installations producing hydrogen, transporting hydrogen, and setting up then steel production with hydrogen instead of coal. Also at the moment, also they get for this also funds from European Union and Germany. But here it looks at the moment they are comparably optimistic concerning the steel production. Also ThyssenKrupp is a very big concern and has also some other problems and issues. But also the end of combustion engine 2035 is not popular in Germany, for example. Also no registration for cars with combustion engine in 2035 if they are new. Also that's, for example, one topic where the people are very reluctant. On the other side, I think everybody has seen last year, as relying on energy, natural gas from Russia was not so clever, as we have to invest in renewable energy.
We have a question.
Yes, thank you, Professor. That was very insightful. I have a question in terms of so when you talk about energy and supplying a lot of things and trying to replace them with more reliable and sustainable methods, is there any effort to also kind of influence the behavior to reduce the demand? So, say instead of building a new school, it's more expensive and it's more tiresome to renovate an old school, but you're producing less, you're recycling steel. How do you drive that type of behavior kind of in the European Union?
Okay, also the target is to close material cycles. So also in principle, the European Union has also one aim that it go to complete recycling of all materials. And to this also belongs, of course, yes, try to use all buildings or improve all buildings before you put them down. I think here, yeah, we need also to have a look more in detail how it really works out. And yeah, so specifically in the building sector, we have already big discussion. Also in the area I'm teaching, in the Lower Rhine area, we have big production sites for sand. Sand is now not really exciting, but yeah, when you dig for sand, then you have afterwards big holes, which fill up with water, and the people do not like this. And so the people are very concerned what's happening to the landscape when you have sand production in big scale. And yes, the sand is needed for the construction. So reducing the demand of new sand and reusing concrete, reusing building materials would be very necessary. So that shall be addressed in the aim closing material cycles, reducing demand. Also, I visited a European Union website where they, for example, yeah, give tips how you could consume more climate neutral. Also, for example, eat less meat, buy not so many clothes, or buy clothes which were recycled, reused. Such things are also discussed. Okay, on the other side, European Union is liberal economy. So in principle, we have the paradigm of increasing economy, and that's not matching with decreasing demand. I think the same conflict you have probably in the United States.
Your university has a green fabrication lab, which has been developing some new materials which may be applicable in construction and in other areas. And I'm curious as to what those new materials might be, and to what extent what you're doing in the university can be transferred into the construction industry in a way that helps to reduce emissions and carbon footprints.
Also, to be honest, we do not research so much in materials used in construction industry, but more, for example, a colleague of mine is working on coffee, and not the coffee you use for making your coffee in the morning, but the residuals of the coffee making. Also, the used coffee powder contains many interesting substances, oils, which in principle could be reused for other purposes. Also that's one thing what we are working on. Another thing is recycling of plastic. Okay, here you could say yes. That could go in the direction of construction material. A company in our region, I hope we come together in a project. They have developed a method to recycle the blades of wind power plants. The blades of wind power plants are made from carbon fibers and epoxides. And this combination is extremely stable. So at the moment, state of art is when the blades are not used anymore. Yeah, put them away and they will not rot for the next 100 or 200 or 300 years. They invested now in a method how you can reuse these materials again. And that would be, of course, for example, also interesting for construction because, yeah, this blade material is lightweight, but also extremely stable. So that could be probably something which is also interesting for constructing of buildings.
Your charts indicate that the biggest reduction that you've had in greenhouse gases was during the period of COVID. Could you talk about what the elements were of that reduction? I'm assuming that people were driving less, but what else contributed to that large reduction in 2019? And to what extent is that replicable in a way that would provide some guidance for ways of reducing those impacts?
Also increasing the amount of home office would for sure help. And that was also discussed now during the energy crisis, that people should work more from at home, saving the energy necessary for driving. What is not really wanted is the industry partly stopped completely. Also the car manufacturing sites in Germany stopped the operation completely. Also the companies who deliver components to the car industry had to stop. And that was a very big disruption in the supply chain. And the outcome was then also that the chip producers partly reduced their production, which led then, when car industry started to operate again, suddenly nobody had chips for the electronics. So it was, again, not in the same extent, but a little bit reproduced in 2022. For electric cars, important components are mostly produced in Ukraine. When the war started, the production in Ukraine went down for very clear reasons, and suddenly the supply chain was already again disrupted. So also here, some things, home office, more clever organization of work could help. Yeah, reducing production, would mean reducing industrial activity. That is in principle what European Union tries to avoid.
So both COVID and the war in Ukraine contributed towards, they're both disasters, and yet they both have contributed towards reductions in greenhouse gas emissions.
Probably not the Ukrainian war so much, because we shifted from natural gas to coal, which increased emissions again.
Interesting. Do we have?
Yeah,
another question.
We have an online question, which is really interesting. So I want to just share this question with Professor, that what are your concerns regarding cars in the EU? Because there are a lot of motorsports events organized in European Union, and they can generate revenue for different countries, but at the same time they emit a lot of carbon emission. So do you think that this could affect meeting the goals for 2050?
Also in principle, yes. You could not, of course, now start to calculate how much emissions are caused by racing events and how many trees would you need to absorb this. As I would, in the first place, assume the emissions per car in a racing event are very, very high. But compared to the emissions of cars in everyday life, probably it's again very small. Nevertheless, yes, of course, when you want to be carbon neutral, also either you stop the car racing events or you increase the carbon sinks in a way that this car racing event is balanced. Also that could mean, for example, forestation projects. Of course, droughts are not helping forestation. Also at the moment, the trees in Europe are not so happy because of missing water. Also not only in North Italy, not only in South France, also in Germany we have problems with too many dry summers in the last years.
So you're suggesting that if Verstappen and Red Bull slowed down their cars in Formula One, that maybe we would see some positive impact in terms of.
They could shift to electric cars, and electric cars are starting much more fast than combustion cars.
And
they're also technically electric cars, at least acceleration is better.
Yes, we have a question.
I think F1 has a climate neutral pledge by 2030. So hopefully they're able to do something. Here I had a question. So here in the United States, one of the big bottlenecks to the clean energy transition is around transmission and permitting, right? So we have thousands of solar and wind projects that aren't getting connected to the grid because we simply can't build enough transmission lines and get them permitted to connect them to the grid. Europe has generally been more successful on that front. Could you talk a little bit about what the strategy is in the Green Deal around permitting and transmission and how that's evolving?
Also I would like to start with Germany. Germany decided already in 1990 that energy produced by renewable, electricity produced by renewable energy has guaranteed access to the grid. The grid operator has to take it, and they obtained also up to 2015, 2016 guaranteed fees. So here in this situation, the operators of wind power plants or solar power plants by legislation had access to the grid, and also in other European unions, in principle, offering renewable energy, the grid operator has to take it. Now in Germany, we have nevertheless another problem. We have the wind power plants, and wind power plants are more important than photovoltaic power plants. We have the wind power plants mostly in northern Germany, specifically in the coastal areas. The electricity is mostly needed in South Germany. And the grid line capacity we have in place is very often not big enough to transport the electricity from the north to the south of Germany. So that is at the moment also hampering in Germany, increasing the share of renewable energy. But I think in principle also in European Union, much more regulations are in place. So I think the grid operators complying to the legislations do not have much choice than to connect renewable energy plants in the first place. They can ask the plant operators again to stop their power plants if the grid capacity is not enough. But in the first place, yes, they have to be connected, and there's no discussion about that.
Okay, Professor, I have a question. First of all, I would like to thank you. So I have a question that, as we all know, that how important concrete and cement is in the construction industry. So is it the right time to look for an alternate for concrete or cement? Because these two are the main elements which are responsible for the, the pollution, and which can be the roadblocks in the way of sustainable environment. So is this the right time to look for an alternate?
As I think it's of course the right time, because if you do not look for an alternative now, you will not have anyone in place 2050. And also for the steel industry, there are some ideas how you can avoid carbon dioxide emissions. For cement industry, I do not see many options. As in principle, yes, you can of course always start to say a certain amount of carbon dioxide is absorbed somewhere else, or you can go for carbon capture, but then what you do with the carbon dioxide? Because when you capture it, then in principle, yeah, you need to remove it from atmosphere also for a long time. And yeah, also, there are some projects in European Union working on storage of carbon dioxide.
Yes,
But
and
it's not simple. So also, yes, also for concrete, okay, the question would be, would it be also an option to try to go for recycling of concrete? But
yes,
to be honest, I have studied chemistry, but I have not so much knowledge about concrete.
thank you, Professor.
Okay, I will ask questions on behalf of the students who are interested for internship. Thank you for sharing the information. I'm going to share the information with the students here. But what would be the best way to go about this? Do you suggest that they come as a group, study abroad kind of group, or they apply individually? And what do they expect when they come there? They will be involved in research?
Yeah.
Give us some ideas.
It depends a little bit on if they go for internship or if they go for studying. Also when they study, then in principle they would, yeah, also you know it from Fitchburg, then we have already a collaboration. When collaborations are already in place, then it's of course much, much easier. But as a single student from a not collaborating university, in the first place you look at which degree program is of interest for you, and yeah, then you contact in principle our international office and ask for more details. What you should also clarify, as in Germany, you do not need to pay as high fees for studying as in United States. So you have to pay per semester, I think around about 200 euro or something like that. Nevertheless, it could be that you have to pay the fees for your home university. Also that you need to clarify with your home university. When you are interested in working as an intern, then my suggestion would be, also when you want to work as in an internship, that you look on our homepage, look in projects which could be of interest for you, and contact the people in charge directly. So nevertheless, you can also contact me and I look what options exist. That would be also an option.
I hope many of you here are doing cost-benefit analysis in your head, because this is really good. Think about this, and I'm going to share the information on this PowerPoint. Thank you, Professor. This is really good. Any other questions?
I think 200 euros is less than $250, just for comparative purposes, which in relation to Northeastern's tuition is a very deep discount. We're about at the end of our time, and I wonder if, given your experience working with American universities and what you've seen here in the States, what would be the key takeaways, the key bits of advice that you would give to students who are studying construction management and project management here in the States in terms of career paths and the kinds of things they should be thinking about as they think about not only the prospect of possibly working within the European Union, but also in terms of things that might be innovative for them to apply to their work when they're finishing their studies here.
Yeah, as a first of all, very good question. And yeah, the European Union is of course also very heterogeneous. As one thing is, of course, depending on in which country you want to work, is language skills. So that would be most easy, I think, for United States and Ireland. Cyprus, I think many people speak English. Malta. Otherwise, as in Germany, at least many people speak some English, and companies, specifically international companies, also accept people only speaking English. But some German skills would be helpful also living in Germany. In France, they speak French. So here that depends also on the country. Otherwise, I would say be open and just have a look. And yeah, probably one option would be first go as tourist and have a look how Europe works. Do you like it? Yes or no? So that would be so ad hoc my advice. Otherwise, yeah, what would you think? What the other way around, when students from our university, also for example, German students, want to go to the United States, what would be your advice to them?
Well, one thing I would conclude with is that a number of years ago, I had the opportunity to be a critic at the Bauhaus, working with a number of international students speaking English there. And I think what impressed me most was the extent to which German engineering and technology and building practices and design practices tended to be significantly more innovative than what I was seeing here in the United States. It's not just about cars. It was about the application, for example, of the a study of hydrodynamics in the automobile industry that was being applied to building technologies there as engineers and architects were looking at different ways of reducing wind impacts at ground level in their buildings and the like. And the technology, the digital platforms that they were applying to building and construction techniques seemed to me at that time to be fairly significantly more advanced than what it was that I was seeing here in the States. So I would certainly encourage any of our students who might be thinking of an internship or an opportunity to spend some time at your university in Germany, that they should seize that opportunity. And then for European students who might have an interest in studying here, I would say one of the great advantages of Northeastern is that we've gone so global in recent years. We have more international students enrolled here at Northeastern than is the case at any other university in the United States. And so the opportunity to interact with a broad range of people from around the world around seemingly similar technologies is as great here as it would be anywhere else. And so to the extent that we could pursue our conversations about developing closer working relationships, I think we'd be very interested in doing that. And with that, I'll turn this over to Professor Mustafa.
Thank you. Professor Buder, this has been really very enlightening and very informative session. So we really want to thank you for bringing this comparative. You gave us something to think about, how goals can be changed into law. I think that would be a huge challenge in the United States. So thank you very much for this very important and instructive session, I would say. And I want to thank Professor Tasbahji for joining us, and I want to thank each and every one of you. This has been a great conversations, and I hope, Professor Buder, this will continue. I see there is a great potential between Rhine-Wall and Northeastern University, and I hope that we will explore this more, and we look forward to you coming and visiting Boston.
Yeah, so many thanks. Many thanks for having me. And I would love to visit Boston soon. I would be very delighted. Yeah, I'm very happy that I could be with you today.